I'm the best man at my best friend's wedding, and the bride used to be my wife. That line alone should tell you everything, but it doesn't. Because what really hurts isn't the wedding, it's the invitation that showed up 3 years too late. Ryan and I had grown up side by side. Same school, same broken windows, same promises about never letting a girl come between us. And then came Claire. She'd walked into my life during the kind of year when nothing made sense, and somehow made all of it make sense again. We married young, thinking love could outrun everything. It didn't. One slow argument at a time, we fell apart until there was nothing left to hold but silence. When the envelope arrived, plain white, gold letters, I almost laughed. Ryan and Claire. No last names, no Mr. and Mrs., just the two people who had once been my entire world, now printed side by side like it was destiny's casual joke. He wanted me to stand next to him as best man. She wanted me to smile for the photographs. I poured a drink and tried to picture it. The vows, the music, the moment she'd look up and pretend she didn't remember the sound of my voice saying, "I do." Outside, rain started tapping the window, same rhythm it used the night she moved out. 3 weeks until the wedding. 3 weeks to figure out how to stand beside my best friend without letting the truth show on my face.
She called me the night before she said yes to him. Not Ryan, her, my ex-wife. I hadn't heard her voice in almost a year, and then suddenly it was there again. Soft, familiar, too calm to be casual. "Hey," she said, "I know it's late." I remember staring at the ceiling, half thinking I was dreaming. "What's wrong?" She hesitated. "Nothing, just needed to hear someone who still knows me." That sentence hit harder than I wanted it to, because I did know her. Every laugh, every silence, every lie she thought sounded small. We talked for hours, mostly about nothing. Music, the house we sold, the neighbors we used to joke about. She didn't mention him once, and I didn't ask. But near the end, she whispered, "Do you think people can start over?" I said, "Depends on who they start with." She went quiet for a moment. "Yeah, that's what I thought." Then the line clicked off. A week later, Ryan told me he was engaged. When I hung up the phone, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I tried to be happy for him the way old friends are supposed to be, but something in my chest kept saying this wasn't coincidence. She hadn't called me to talk. She'd called to make sure I was still the kind of man who wouldn't burn everything down. The night before the wedding announcement, I found her number still open on my phone. I almost called back, almost asked when she'd stopped loving me and started loving him, but I didn't. Some truths sound better unanswered. The next morning, she sent a text. "Thank you for picking up that night. I just needed peace." Peace. I read that word until it lost meaning. Because peace doesn't sound like the woman you loved marrying your best friend. It sounds like a door closing and you being too tired to stop it.
I hadn't seen her in a year, but one look at her and every lie came rushing back. The engagement party was held at the country club outside town, the one with the big glass windows that make everyone look happier than they are. Ryan had texted me that morning, "Don't be weird, man. She's nervous too." Nervous. That word made me laugh all the way there. When I walked in, the first thing I noticed wasn't her dress or her hair. It was her posture. The same tilt of the head she used when she wanted to seem confident but wasn't sure if the room believed her. She turned and saw me before I could look away. For a heartbeat, it felt like old times. Then she smiled, polite and practiced,
like she was greeting a distant cousin. "Hey," she said. "Hey," I answered. It sounded too small for everything between us. Ryan appeared seconds later, grinning, arm around her waist like he'd always been meant to stand there. "Look who finally showed up," he said, clapping my shoulder. "Wouldn't be the same without you." I wanted to tell him it already wasn't. We spent the next hour pretending life was normal, laughing, shaking hands, taking pictures. Every time she looked my way, she'd blink too long, as if trying to erase the memory of the last time we stood this close. When the crowd thinned, she came over. "I didn't know if you'd come," she said softly. "Did you want me to?" She hesitated. "Yes, I thought maybe, I don't know, closure." That word again, closure. Like there's ever a clean way to seal off something that's already buried under guilt. I asked, "Does Ryan know?" Her voice cracked just a little. "About us? No, he doesn't need to." I should have said something sharp, something to make her feel what I was feeling. Instead, I just nodded. "Right, he doesn't need to." Ryan called from across the room, waving for us to join the group photo. She wiped a tear before anyone saw it and said, "Come on, best man." The flash went off. In the picture, we're all smiling. Me, her, and the man who didn't know he was marrying a ghost of someone else's story. That night, I drove home in silence. Every song on the radio sounded like an apology I didn't want. When I finally parked, I sat there staring at the steering wheel until the streetlights turned off. Because now that I'd seen her again, I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit. I hadn't stopped loving her. I'd just gotten used to the ache.
I used to think betrayal had a sound. Turns out, it's silence. The silence that sits in your chest after someone lies to your face and you smile anyway. That kind of quiet was all I heard for days after the engagement party. I tried to convince myself that maybe I'd imagined it, her hesitation, the tear, the weight in her voice when she said closure, but small towns have a cruel sense of timing. They never let secrets stay buried. 3 nights later, I stopped by Ryan's garage to drop off some old tools I'd borrowed months ago. He wasn't there, but one of the guys handed me a box of photos Ryan had asked him to pass along. He said, "You'd want to see these for the slideshow," he said. Photos from the early days, college, road trips, the 3 of us crowded into one frame. I smiled at the first few, then stopped halfway through the stack. It was a picture of a lake house, ours, the one Claire and I used to escape to on weekends when things were still good. She was standing on the porch, wind in her hair, and beside her, Ryan. Same porch, same weekend, but I wasn't there. I flipped it over. On the back, in Ryan's handwriting, it said, "Best weekend ever, 2018. We were still married in 2018. I sat in my truck for a long time, the box of photos on the seat next to me, hand shaking. That was 2 years before she moved out. 2 years before the long fights, the quiet dinners, the late-night work trips. All of it suddenly lined up like dominoes falling in reverse. The time she forgot her phone on the counter, the weekend she said she was visiting her sister, the text from an unknown number that just said, "Made it safe." I hadn't been losing her back then. She was already gone. The next morning, Ryan called. "Hey man, about the slideshow, find anything good?" "Yeah, a few surprises." He laughed, not hearing the weight in my voice. "Good surprises, I hope." "Depends on who you ask," I said, then hung up.
That night, I poured myself a drink and laid every photo on the kitchen table. There they were, laughing, young, alive. And in every picture, she looked freer than she ever did with me. The truth didn't break me. It hollowed me out. Because now, I couldn't even hate him. He'd only taken what she was already offering. By the time the sun came up, I knew exactly what I had to do. Stand beside him anyway. Watch them make promises on the ashes of the one she broke. Sometimes forgiveness isn't noble. It's just exhaustion wearing a suit.
I used to think pretending was hard. It's not. What's hard is pretending while they call it love. The rehearsal dinner was held at the same church where I'd said my own vows 3 years earlier. Different flowers, same echo. When I walked in, Ryan was already joking with the officiant, sleeves rolled up, completely at ease. He looked like a man who'd never been lied to in his life. She was next to him, laughing softly, that same nervous laugh I'd once fallen for. "Hey, best man?" Ryan waved. "You ready for your big speech?" If he heard the strain in my voice when I said always, he didn't mention it. We ran through the order. Who stands where, who walks when. Every step was choreographed perfection. Every line about commitment and trust, twisting the knife a little deeper. The officiant asked Ryan to practice his vows. He cleared his throat and said, "You are my beginning and my end, the one I was always meant to find." I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because I'd written those same words once, in a letter she never answered. When it was her turn, she looked down at her notes, voice barely above a whisper. "You make me believe in second chances." Our eyes met. She faltered. For one small moment, the mask slipped, and I saw the guilt hiding behind the mascara. Then she blinked, smiled, and kept going. Afterward, Ryan clapped me on the back. "Man, I can't tell you how much it means having you here," he said. "Wouldn't be right without you." I wanted to tell him the truth, that none of this was right, that I'd seen the photos, heard the silences, lived through the same lines she was about to promise him. But I didn't, because betrayal has a strange rule. Once you're inside it, you start protecting the people who caused it. Dinner followed. Champagne, laughter, toasts. I gave my practice speech, the one about friendship and loyalty, and everyone smiled like it was genuine. She couldn't look at me while I spoke. When it ended, I stepped outside for air. The night smelled like rain again. Ryan joined me, bumping my shoulder like old times. "She's something else, huh?" he said, grinning. "Yeah," I said quietly. "She really is." He laughed and went back inside. I stayed out there watching lightning flicker over the hills, wondering if the storm was waiting for morning or if it had already started. I've stood in funerals that felt less final than that wedding. The church smelled of flowers and rain. Every pew was full. Every whisper felt too loud. Ryan stood beside me, smiling like the world had finally lined up in his favor. And she looked like a memory I'd tried too hard to forget. When the organ started, everyone turned toward the doors. I didn't. I couldn't. I already knew what she looked like in white. I'd seen that picture before. Same walk, different man waiting. She reached the altar, and for a moment her eyes flicked to mine. Tiny glance, a crack in the performance, then gone. The officiant began the same script I heard years ago. Love is patient, love is kind. The words used to sound holy. Now they just sounded borrowed. Ryan's turn first. He read from a small folded card, voice steady, proud. "You are my home, the calm after every storm." I bit the inside of my cheek until I tasted blood, because once I'd said almost the same thing. Then it was her turn. She took a shaky breath. "You have shown me what real love feels like. Honest, unconditional, and new." Honest. The word landed like a slap. She looked straight at me when she said it, and for half a second, the whole room vanished. Just me, her, and the echo of a promise that had already been broken twice. People laughed when the ring slipped. Someone whispered, "Cute!" I wanted to leave, but leaving would mean admitting I still cared enough to hurt. So I stayed. I clapped. I watched them kiss while the crowd cheered. When they turned to walk down the aisle, she brushed past me. Her hand grazed mine, almost accidental, almost not. She whispered one word as she passed. "Sorry." No one else heard it. No one else needed to. Outside, cameras flashed. Rain began again, thin and constant, like applause from a sky that didn't mean it. They posed for pictures. I held the umbrella. The photographer said, "Closer, everyone." And I smiled, the kind of smile you practice in mirrors when you're trying not to cry. If heartbreak had a soundtrack, it would start with a love song you once danced to. The reception hall glowed like a dream someone else was having. Strings of lights, champagne glasses, laughter that felt rehearsed. Everyone said it was the perfect night. Maybe it was, if you didn't know what it cost. I sat at the head table beside Ryan, watching him beam at her like the world had finally given him everything he deserved. And maybe it had. He leaned close and whispered, "You good, man? You look miles away." "I'm just tired," I said. He nodded, still smiling. "You've been through enough, brother. You deserve some peace, too." Peace. There was that word again. It kept following me around like a ghost that wouldn't rest. When the music started, he pulled her onto the floor for their first dance. The song was our song, one she used to play in the kitchen while we cooked. I felt it hit me before the first chorus. She must have felt it too, because halfway through, she turned her head slightly, eyes finding me across the crowd. She didn't look guilty. She looked sorry. And somehow that hurt worst. After the applause, couples began joining them. Someone dragged me up, pushed me toward the edge of the dance floor. I laughed it off, but Ryan waved me over. "Come on, best man, one dance won't kill you." I stepped in. The air smelled like wine and roses and memories I didn't want. She was right there, a few feet away, spinning under the lights. For a second, our paths crossed. She brushed my arm as she turned. "Beautiful night." "Depends who asks." She tried to smile but couldn't hold it. "I didn't think you'd actually come." I had to. Someone has to remember how it really started. Before she could answer, Ryan appeared with 2 glasses of champagne. "To new beginnings," he shouted. I lifted my glass, met her eyes over the rim, and said quietly, "Yeah, to endings too." The song changed, faster now. Laughter rose again, but for me, everything had already slowed down. The lights, the music, even the air felt heavier. I slipped out onto the balcony while the room kept spinning behind me. Rain tapped the rail. From inside, I could still hear their laughter, her voice tangled with his. It should have made me angry. Instead, I just felt empty. Because that's what betrayal does in the end. It doesn't explode. It drains you quietly until even hate feels like work.
Every wedding ends in 2 kinds of silence. The one after music fades, and the one that comes when truth finally wants to speak. It was close to midnight when the laughter thinned and the champagne lost its sparkle. Guests started leaving in clusters, shoes in hand, promises to call that no one would keep. Ryan found me outside, sitting on the stone steps, jacket off, staring at nothing. He was drunk. Not messy drunk, just loose, talkative. The kind of drunk that makes people too honest. "You disappear faster than the cake," he said, dropping beside me. "Someone's got to make sure the stars don't get bored," I said. He laughed. "Always poetic, man. That's why I wanted you here. You keep things real." I didn't answer. I didn't know how to be real anymore. He took a deep breath, looked up at the sky. "You ever think about how weird life is? Like how we end up exactly where we swore we wouldn't?" "Yeah," I said. "I think about that a lot." He nodded, swirling what was left in his glass. "You know, when Claire and I first started talking, I almost didn't let it happen. I knew it'd hurt you." My stomach tightened. "Then why did you?" He stared at the horizon like the answer might be written there. "Because she said you were already gone, that you didn't care anymore. I told myself I was helping her heal." "And you believed that?" I asked quietly. He turned to me, eyes glassy. "No, but I wanted to." For a long time, neither of us said anything. The sound of rain on the grass filled the gaps. "You know, she loved you, right?" he finally said. "Maybe once," I said, "but not enough to stay." He nodded slowly. "I guess none of us stayed, really. We just changed chairs at the same table." He stood up, stretched, tried to laugh but couldn't. "Thanks for not hating me," he said. I looked at him and almost smiled. "Who says I don't?" He chuckled, gave me that familiar half hug men do when they can't face what they've broken, and went back inside. I sat there until the lights went out one by one. The wind carried the last notes of a song I used to love, and I realized how strange it felt to outlive your own life.
She found me when the lights were almost gone. The last guests had drifted off, leaving half-empty glasses and wilted flowers. The hall looked smaller without noise. I was still on the steps, jacket damp with mist, when I heard her voice. "Ryan's asleep," she said. I didn't turn around. "Then you should be too." She stepped closer. Her perfume was faint, mixed with rain. "I needed to see you." "Why? So you can say sorry again?" She shook her head. "So you'll know it wasn't all a lie." I finally looked at her. "The day you left," I said, "I told myself you'd found something better. I needed to believe that, because the alternative was that you just stopped loving me." She looked down. "I didn't stop. I just got tired of fighting what we'd already ruined." The words felt rehearsed, too neat. Ruined by what? Distance? Bad timing? Or the fact that you were already in love with my best friend? Her eyes filled fast, no warning. "It wasn't supposed to happen. He listened when you stopped. He asked when you didn't. It felt simple for once." "Simple," I repeated. "That's what betrayal is now? Simple?" She took a breath. "I wanted you at the wedding because I needed to see if I'd made peace with what I did. I thought maybe if you were there, I'd finally forgive myself." "And did it work?" She hesitated. "No." Wind pushed through the open doors. A napkin fluttered across the floor. I almost laughed. The universe has a dark sense of humor. "You know what the worst part is?" I said quietly. "He's not the villain. You're not either. Maybe I'm the idiot who kept loving both of you." She stepped closer, like she wanted to touch my hand, but stopped halfway. "I'm sorry," she whispered again. I nodded. "Yeah, me too."
She walked away before I could say anything else. The sound of her heels faded, and for the first time all night, the silence felt clean.
I left before the sun could see me. The hotel hallway was still, the kind of quiet that makes you walk softer without knowing why. I packed without turning on the lights. My suit still smelled of rain and champagne. I didn't bother folding it. Outside, the parking lot was half flooded from the storm. The air carried that metallic chill that comes right before dawn. I stood there for a minute, watching the hotel windows, wondering which one was theirs. There's something strange about leaving while the world sleeps, like you're sneaking out of your own life. I slid my best man speech across the front desk, told the clerk to give it to Ryan when he checked out. The envelope wasn't sealed. I wanted him to decide whether to read it. The drive out of town felt endless. Every streetlight looked like a memory flickering out. I passed the diner where the three of us once spent New Year's, the lake house sign buried under weeds, the church steeple fading in the rearview mirror. Halfway to the highway, I pulled over. The horizon was starting to glow pale blue. I rolled down the window and listened to the world waking up. Birds, a distant train, the sound of something ending quietly. I thought about all the words I hadn't said, the anger that never found a place to land, the forgiveness that never felt earned. Before getting back on the road, I took off the tie, the watch she'd given me, and tossed him into the passenger seat. Little souvenirs of a life that didn't fit anymore. When I finally crossed the county line, rain started again. Soft, almost kind. I laughed out loud. Maybe that was the universe's way of washing the rest of it off me. By the time the sun cleared the hills, the town was gone behind me. And for the first time in years, so was she.
Months later, the universe set me proof that some endings keep ending. I was back in the city by then. New job, smaller apartment, fewer ghosts. Life had started feeling ordinary again, which, honestly, was a kind of miracle. One evening, I stopped at a cafe I hadn't been to in years. Same chipped mugs, same tired radio station. The waitress brought my coffee and said, "You're from Hartley, right? You knew Ryan Turner?" I froze. "Yeah. Why?" She shrugged, casual. "Think I saw him here last week, alone." I didn't ask questions. I just sat there, staring at the steam rising from my cup, realizing I'd been waiting to hear that without knowing it. Later that night, curiosity won. I searched his name. It took 5 seconds to find what I already suspected. Divorced. No details, just a line in a social post about new beginnings, the same words they'd used on their wedding favors. I should have felt vindicated. I didn't, because betrayal doesn't really disappear, it just changes shape until it looks like something else. Relief, maybe. Nostalgia. Quiet. Sometimes I still think about that night. The rain, the vows, the way she looked when she said, "honest." And sometimes I imagine them both somewhere sitting across from each other, realizing too late that they built their future on the ruins of mine. I don't hate them anymore. I don't love them either. I just understand. Understand that closure isn't a door slamming shut. It's a window slowly opening after a long storm, letting in air that doesn't hurt to breathe.
And in that silence, I finally found what she said she wanted the night she called me. Peace.